Good evening, Zelda Race fans. Welcome to tonight's race in Week 4 for the A Link to the Past Randomizer League Season 3. Tonight we have an exciting battle in the Eastern Palace Division between the 4 and 2 New Hyrule Order and the 2 and 4 Longshots. We've got SEJay racing for New Hyrule Order. We've got Timp on stream for the Longshots. And this is game 1 of their 2 races for this week against each other. Hello, I'm one of your commentators, Jossum Sauce, here tonight with my co-commentator, Vortex of Doom. Hey, Vortex, what are we looking at here tonight?
So what we've got here is spoiler log pilot key sanity, which is it's a really interesting mode. You don't see much of it outside the league, but each runner will play the game, and they each have a teammate who will get the spoiler log as soon as they start. No prep time, no anything of the sort, and just have to find the items they need to progress. SEJay's pilot is McMonkey, and Timp is being piloted by Arusta. So I know both of them have put both teams have put a significant amount of practice into the mode. So this should be a really good race.
Absolutely. And before we get started here, shout out thanks to our tracker, SEJay and our restreamer, Amarith. It looks like we're about to get underway here in a few seconds. Anything else before we get started here, Vortex?
No, I think both runners are just about ready, so we should be getting started pretty soon.
And as Vortex said, both of the pilots will be getting the spoiler log right when the race starts. They're going to have kind of the chaos of parsing through that spoiler text to be able to guide their runners through. And as we have a moon pearl on the sanctuary to start out here.
Yeah, that's kind of funny because that early in a seed, you usually just autopilot the chest in whichever place you start. You can't read that fast, and it's always nice when that sank chest turns out to be something required. Looks like both runners are going to start with a Houlihan. It's a nice strategy to give the pilot some time to parse through the log a little bit and guarantee that you have some money.
Yeah, it's nice to not have to route in a bunch of money early, but we don't know yet if, Zora is part of this. We, of course, may have to pay for Pod. It looks like Pod's a crystal. So there will be some money involved, and just having that extra bonus at the beginning can really help out.
Definitely. This is a start that my team and I often do, nearly always, actually. Some pilots will actually... Ooh, and we find a glove in Link's house. I've seen it done, where you check the tree poles and bush crabs first, and if you can get rupees and bombs off those, you can just skip the Houlihan entirely and save yourself a minute, but that does put a lot more pressure on the pilot.
Now, what's interesting is even though they have the glove, neither of them opted to pick up that stone right in front of Link's house. That's a 50-50 bomb drop.
Yeah, maybe opting just to go straight to CAC. They know they probably won't need all the bombable walls, and there is a bomb shop right there, and that they'll probably end up buying some anyway.
And chances are with Blind's Hut and Well and all these dense checks, maybe there's some bombs in there on the way too they're going to get.
SEJay is making a stop into the tavern. And there we have our hammer. So that's Dark World access at 2 minutes. So
wow. Can I answer the question in the chat? This is spoiler log. Do all the rules apply? Yes, they can watch each other's stream. They can be watching this stream right now. The pilots can. But often they don't really take a look at that until near the end of the race.
Yeah, it can be kind of a trap in my experience. If you're watching early, you'll miss something. If both pilots are watching each other, they're not looking where their runner is going. It can be a lot more trouble than it's worth. So, and there's our GT big key. So no search for that. That I think was the first 10 checks. So.
Yeah, and when you're a pilot, and that's primarily what I do for my team, you just have so much information coming at you. There's 211 or so checks you're going to look at on one text file and you've got about 20 seconds to figure out the next thing for your runner to do.
Yeah, the beginning of the game is extremely hectic, especially when you're in Kakariko and you need to know which checks you're going to grab and which ones you're going to skip pretty quickly. And we see a castle tower small. I wonder if that will be necessary or if that's something that's like, well, this is free if it is necessary.
Yeah, when you have big density checks like this, where there's 3 to 5 chests, sometimes the pilot just says, get all the chests. Give me a minute or two to look through the rest of the spoiler, and it builds some time for the pilot to get through it.
We see SEJay heading in to talk to Sick Kid. Oh, and there's the flute. That's a little interesting that they opted not to pick that up. Maybe they missed it. Maybe they're grabbing. I could see grabbing the mirror or something so that you can like go back into town and activate it then if you need to go into Dark World or Boots or something. But if whatever's in Mini Moldarm, SEJay will be able to grab pretty quickly and come right back. So.
And some of that can be that chaos of the beginning. Sick Kid is mixed in with all the Light World checks on the text file, and that can be really tough to see when you're overwhelmed with a lot of things to look at.
Absolutely. That's they will almost certainly need to visit the village of outcasts before too long, and it's a pretty easy fix once you've done that. Looks like they might be cleaning that up right now. A little unfortunate, but certainly not time that can't be made up.
Should also mention that they found a sword in Blind's Hut, so they do have a sword and Dark World access in addition to the mobility item of the flute there. Looks like both runners are headed towards the Lost Woods here. There looks like there may be an item here. Let's see. It's a big key to Thieves Town. That's very important to be able to get to the back of Thieves Town, and it is a crystal, so that's a required item for sure.
SEJay taking out his hammer. This looks like we're probably going to head straight into the village at this point. Since he's not taken out that activated flute to go elsewhere. So I expect that if we're taking the long way around to the Village of Outcasts portal, that either Mirror or Boots are coming shortly if we're prioritizing this over fluting somewhere easily accessible.
And just pointing out that our tracker, SEJay has already, since you've seen the spoiler log, he's been able to mark off all of the prizes for the dungeons. So we do know what's our pendants, what's our crystals, the same as the runners and pilots do right now too.
Yeah, you're not going to see a map check in a spoiler race unless, something goes terribly wrong and the runners delete that portion of the spoiler log. And I can't think of a good situation to do a map check. So that's one. SEJay taking a rough death. That's one of the worst rooms in the game. Luckily, that fairy in a bottle is there. Won't take too much time off, but probably not how we wanted to use it.
Yeah, and at this point, every few seconds counts as Timp is making his way into probably the same area right behind him.
Yeah, and the extra couple stops Timp and Arusta have made, he's got 2 more hearts, which is not trivial at this stage in the game. And as I predicted, the boots were in the big key chest of Skull Woods, so that is a nice pickup for SEJay, and I assume Timp is going to be right behind.
Absolutely. As a pilot, the first thing you want to look for, besides giving your runner those first instructions, you want to see where those boots, where those flute is, the other mobility, and then some of the safeties, kind of the first things you look for. So if you can get those mobility items early, that's going to speed up the process. And of course, as we see here, if both sides are getting those items, we got to catch up on that advantage.
See that Cane of Burna in the chest game with a low health Thieves Town, which I assume is what's probably coming next. Definitely a good pickup.
And his Timp will get his boots. Now there is a strategy you can use in that room with the Gyptos. Involves pulling the statue at the right time where you can avoid them all. It's definitely something worth looking into to speed up that room for sure.
Yeah, it's far but from foolproof, but definitely can increase the consistency of getting past those Gyptos without having the Cane of Samaria. And we see our hook shot in the front four of Thieves Town.
Lots of mobility. This will probably be a quick seed in terms of them moving around. Who knows if it's quick on the actual item pickups, but they're going to get to where they need to go pretty quickly now.
SEJay picking up an extra heart, since most of the enemies in Thieves Town do 2 hearts of damage on green mail. He's 1 hit from death from a solid number of the enemies in here, so definitely worth the time to pick that up.
And that's very typical of Spoiler Log. You're trying to find the most efficient route through all of the checks in the game. You know, you're not usually going to stop for pieces of hearts, so you're not going to stop for out of the way heart containers. So you often, have 6 to 10 hearts at the end of the game. So we see them picking up the small key for Desert Palace, which means even though that's a crystal dungeon, it means something might be on the right side there that they need.
Interesting. I'm not sure I saw New Hyrule Order pick that up.
They didn't. I just saw the map, the menu there. They didn't have a key for number 2 there.
So I wonder if there's a safety there, or it might just be something NHO missed. And they pick up a key to Misery Mire. Strictly speaking, that's not necessary to get any of the checks, but definitely can make routing Mire a little cleaner if you have to. It is a pendant, so we'll have to watch to see if there's anything we need to get out of Misery Mire. I think if we see Ether, that'll be a pretty sure sign that we do.
One thing that also happens in this kind of race is, the more dense, the late game dungeons, if the pilot's still working on an early game, mid game route, you might just say, hey, pick these Turtle Rock keys, the Misery Mire keys, just in case. It's better to get them than have to come back.
Ooh, and we see the stun prize is 8 pack of bombs, so definitely something our runners could make use of. SEJay just really wants to know how many items he's going to pick up in Hera. And we evidently won't need the big chest today, as never picked up the small key, and since it's a crystal, you can't steal it for that.
Yeah, muscle memory is a real thing, right? You're trained for the open and standard modes to pick everything up as you go. Why not now too?
And we see from SEJay what is probably the least scary part of Thieves Town on 4 hearts green mail is the blind fight. He gets the first two phases of the script down pat and decides to just go with Burna for the third one. Let's see if we see a complete script from Timp or if he opts to do something similar. We get the big key to Skull Woods off blind. Interesting. It's not a required big key, but it might they might want whatever's in there too. Obviously, we had to pick it up since Thieves Town is a crystal. SEJay not interested in that right now, at the very least.
Yeah, some key items right now that they're missing is it would be the Titan's mitts and possibly the mirror to be able to really open up things like Death Mountain and other checks. Also, I don't think there's any pod keys, any Palace of Darkness keys found yet. That's a big check that I'll need. Here's a big key to Dark Palace, speaking of pod, so that's a big find right there.
Yeah, depending on what they need out of pod, they could need as few as 1 key or as many as 5 to route it, nicely. If they need something in both the vanilla big key chest and harmless hellway, but most commonly you'll see runners pick up anywhere from 2 to 4 just to get everything they need and not have to take too many trips down the Bowlock side, if any.
As we see SEJay going into one of the densest places in the game, the Hype Cave. Let's see how hype this cave is today. Although we don't get to see all the checks, it looks like. And there's that magic mirror. Again, that might be one of those, with a compass and 5 rupees being picked up there. That could have been McMonkey saying, hey, give me another minute. Go ahead and just grab all of Hype Cave.
Mm-hmm.
It can be difficult to say, I need 1 and 3 or left and right, just get it all.
We see SEJay coming away from the dig game with pod money to pay Kiki to open pod, but Timp was not quite so lucky with the dig game drops, and I think all we saw as far as rupees go in Hype Cave was 5 in the top one. So if pod's the next destination, Timp might have to do Eastern first, or maybe find some money along the way. Hope he can get some. And Timp does skip the 2 left side chests.
I do want to point out the routing going on with SEJay and McMonkey. They opted away from Mini Moldorm Cave until they came down here, either intentionally or coincidental, but already being in the light world to be able to make that transition quickly over to where they're going next was pretty good.
And they are not heading straight into Eastern pod area. Maybe evidently we want something on the pyramid, or maybe in escape as well. I guess we're getting the pyramid ledge item, and it is a pod small.
It could be escape here. Also, Aga Tower, they do have 1 key to the castle tower, so they can access both of those items. We also don't know if Lumberjack is in play. It could be. That's also on the spoiler log. It will tell you if there's an item there.
Interestingly, the pots right by the cannonball chest that Timp opened for a piece of heart had exactly enough rupees to get him to Kiki money. He opted not to pick any of them up, and we see one good reason to do Eastern first, because the lamp is free on the way.
That'll be a big help to get to those turtle rooms at the end on the way to Helmasaur. Those can be some of the most difficult dark rooms on low percentage like this, because those turtles will hit you really hard. Not sure if the plan is to go to pod after this. That's going to be a concern for Temp without having 110 rupees, especially considering he just skipped the rupee room that was on the right side of just a previous room there. There was some money available.
Well, I think that perhaps there's not much of value in pod, or maybe they're planning on, maybe SEJay and McMonkey are planning on double dipping because they only have one pod small, and if you go Bollock side, that's enough to get to the boss and not much else, conveniently at least. So since they don't have money, perhaps Timp and Arusa are just opting to wait and do it when it's a little less low percent.
Right, and as you said, the lamp here, who knows what we can get on the boss here in Armos. Oh, flippers, so that can lead us somewhere new for sure.
And the Longshots taking a momentary crystal lead while NHO is heading to the back to even it up.
So we're getting some action on the Bonk Rocks, Pegasus Boots here, with a small key to Swamp Palace. And that's a very required key. You can't even get into the dungeon without that one small key, so it's very important, especially with a crystal dungeon of Swamp Palace.
I think with that's everything we need for Swamp Palace. And that looks like where they're headed next. So what do you think we might be seeing here in Swamp? If this is where they're opting to go next, I suppose I could see Titan's Mitts, another sword.
Could be something like Cana Samaria, some item to keep progression going. But Titan's Mitts seems pretty good, making him go up to the mountain after this, or who knows what.
SEJay is opting to go Bollock side of pod. It would not be out of the question, even if something is necessary in here, to find one or more pod smalls in pod, which could let them go further into the dungeon. But given that Timp and Arusa didn't do anything out of their way to make pod happen, and there was a pod small just sitting on the pod smalls don't get much freer than that though, so they're saving themselves a trip to the pyramid, pulling one out of the entrance chest of Swamp. Another sword. Bollock side of pod.
Okay, good. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to give the commentator's curse, but Timp had that mirror out a little bit longer than I would have liked.
Yeah, that's definitely something that has happened much more with the advent of Quick Swap in Link to the Past Rando Racing, because you rarely see somebody menu to mirror and accidentally use it, but when you're rapidly shifting through your inventory, it can be pretty easy to go one too far if you're looking for the bow or whatever.
So it looks like we're going to see the bomb form of Diver Down, which is a nice trick that everybody should learn. You can use the bomb to line yourself up and basically fake out the game to think that you're walking on the ground in there. So we'll see if Timp can make that happen. And he does. And there's the red cane.
So that's the only Diver Down you'd be seeing, since the other setup requires that red cane that they just grabbed.
Chat pointing out that, with Misery Mire and Turtle Rock being pendant dungeons, it's possible the cane isn't required, but of course with Ice Palace being a required dungeon, that cane can be really helpful at saving a lot of time with the Icebreaker glitch. In addition, we don't know what's in Ganon's tower. I mean, they have the big key already, but who knows what's on the right side behind that cane. You never know if something's required.
Yeah, I don't know that anything could be required, since they have that we see that there is access to a Master Sword. Could very well be something that they'd really, really like another sword to avoid a Master Sword Silverless or something like that. But with the big key and hook shot, I don't think there can be much. And there we see our Thieves' Town small, so they can go back in and get whatever's in that big chest out at their leisure, but I don't think we'll see either runner do that.
And you're watching Timp take the menu boss approach to Argus, where if you don't have Master Sword or better, it's sometimes faster to use the hammer, alternating between hook shotting away one of the puffs and then smashing it with a hammer back and forth until you open up Argus.
Yeah, I think it's rarely faster, but it can certainly be safer, and if you're consistent with it, much better than taking a death.
Is the faster route would be the spinning version, right? Is that true?
Yeah, the double fighter sword spins, even if you're only spinning one at a time, I think is faster than any amount of menuing. Timp with a quite nice menu Argus, taking him down pretty comfortably. So I wonder where we will see our Titan's mitts, because they've got to be coming pretty soon, because that's one of the last things we need for access to our dungeons. I think we need the Desert Big and Titan's mitts are all we need, and Fire Rod. Well, there's Fire Rod, so.
So for go mode, it looks like we need the book, or we're gonna have Titan's mitts for sure. So that's could be a go towards go mode progression, but they might find book first in order to get to Desert Palace. So we'll have to see where that goes.
Yeah, I think the only way they would pick up book is if mitts were on a tablet or in desert at this point. I feel like basically anywhere else it would be able to be worked around.
And it seems like nothing of that important would be in Paradox Cave or anywhere on Death Mountain in the Light World, since we haven't seen anybody go up there yet, or it just isn't necessary yet to go up there. We'll have to see.
I'm a little surprised that Tim, even with that free pod key, isn't going and grabbing that second sword here. I think this has to be a play to Skull Woods, and Fire Sword Moth that's a tough fight. Made much easier with even one more sword. But staying in dungeons and clearing them, that's the name of the game. So Timp maintaining, well, I guess it's not a lead. They're even on dungeons right now, and we'll probably be finishing these respective dungeons up at about the same time.
Do we know what's in the bottle for Timp?
I don't believe that he has used his fairy yet. So
yeah, so the fairy could be really helpful.
With a fairy.
Oop, taking a hit there.
You almost think there must be something on Moth to warrant taking the fight with this equipment, as opposed to getting a free sword on your way to kill Helma.
One of the weird advantages of low percent and low health is taking a death. Well, I guess he has a fairy, so he wouldn't want to do that. But, taking a death sometimes can be strategic to refill your hearts. But again, with the fairy, that was kind of tough to go down to one heart there. But he's building it back up.
Ooh, getting grabbed by the wall master. Tim didn't trust his the timing on his last 3 torches and didn't want to get stonewalled right at the door, so ended up waiting it out and got caught. Unfortunate, but definitely an understandable situation.
And as you were explaining about this, the spinning sword strat for Argus, you'll see SEJay using that with Master Sword, hooking 1 or 2 puffs and then unleashing the spin.
Yeah, interestingly, if you do both fights in this way, right, or like, I hesitate to say optimally because it's not the optimal way to kill Argus with Master Sword, but it actually is virtually the same amount of time as with a fighter sword doing it the same way, because if you pull in the puffs, you'll hit them twice with a Master Sword spin as long as you release it in time. It takes two hits to kill them with fighter sword spins, and 1 with a Master Sword spin, but the spins take the same amount of time regardless. As we see Timp working on Moth, using the hammer, will be using that fairy, but I think I saw at least 2 good hammer hits, so should only be 1 more, hopefully, as long as some fire rod shots counted. Moth getting hit into the spikes, but Timp finally taking him down, getting the red boomerang for his trouble, so definitely a good start.
Looks like SEJay's headed for Lake Hyrule Island. So got through. Those I don't know what those enemies are called, but those rock droppers are pretty brutal. Oh, and there's the Titan's Mitts on Lake Hyrule Island, so good pick up there.
Yeah, kind of. I wonder, we shouldn't need them for much other than Ice Palace and GT in this seed. So it's not, I guess that is also our access to desert, but it's certainly reasonable to pick them up right before ice. Kind of surprised. We have to be seeing a sword or some mail or maybe both here.
It's also possible there's something in a big chest in Ice Palace or something where they want that.
That's true as well. What is picking up just a safety in the pinball room of Skullwoods? Did we miss Longshots picking up the mitts? Or are they heading here without them?
No, I believe they're just going without it. Let's see. Does it pick it up? Nope, it doesn't have it.
Yeah, okay. So this makes sense to me. Why they didn't pick it up right after Swamp, because they meant to pick it up right after Swamp.
And that's because the big key for Desert Palace was in Hookshot Cave. So that was really a required item to progress. And it made sense why they waited to come up here.
Grabbing something in Paradox as
yeah,
well. Ah, well.
One thing that can happen when you're piloting too is, as a navigator pilot, you're making a list of checks and errands to run essentially, or what's the next step in the progression line. And a lot of times you get so far ahead in your mind, you might not communicate to your runner that middle step of going and grab that mitt. So it's very possible that Arusta was, he's like 3 steps ahead and just missed something there. Who knows?
Interesting call from SEJay here. I think they went to Paradox to pick up a Skullwood Small. I'm expecting to see a trip directly into the pinball room of Skullwoods when they go there, and then they'll just probably come out using that key. They get the heart container on their way to Moth instead of afterward. It's a pretty marginal difference in time, but.
So as far as I can tell, I think they're in go mode now, right? Like Ice Pal, assuming, with what we don't know about what could be in a box somewhere, right?
Presumably, yeah. I think that's everything we need. We have a second sword. I think both runners would love to see an armor upgrade or another sword, but don't technically need one to finish the game. So that should be go mode, yeah.
And Tim doing an excellent job using the hookshot clip to get through the bottom of the Super Bunny Cave. There's a couple little tricks you can do to save some time going up the mountain in the dark. Both also using the hook speed or spin speed to get through that little drive-through area with all the dead rocks over on the west side of Light World Death Mountain.
SEJay getting a 2 cycle on Lanmo. We get the big key to Turtle Rock. I don't think anything at all could draw our runners to actually use that key, but they have it.
And Temp right behind SEJay heading into Desert Palace. So there is still the difference of the long shot still needing to clear pod, but as we saw, it's just a easy right side bow locked straight through to Helmasaur, while SEJay has to clear Skullwoods.
Nice pickup off the desert ledge from Timp. That Ice Palace Small can definitely save a little time, or make getting a safety a little nicer if there is one available. Making a liar out of me is SEJay. I suppose you couldn't get this heart container if you just dropped in. Picking up this many hearts is making me think that there is not an easy mail upgrade available, because this is a fair number of hearts for spoilers. So this is a number of hearts that I will only collect if I am expecting to be finishing the game on green mail. Personally, as a runner.
And picking up the 300 rupees in the pop prison room too is maybe an indication that he wants to fill a bottle before the end of the game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, given that they only have the one bottle and SEJay's used his free ferry already.
We have to keep in mind that Timp has not paid the monkey for pod yet, so there's still 110 rupees coming off that total.
Yeah, putting off that sword in pod this long. I'm just not sure what to think of it, I guess. It seems, since we haven't seen any stray pod smalls, so and we shouldn't need anything else to beat the game. So it seems like both runners are probably going to end up doing Bollock side, grabbing that sword and going to Helma. So it's interesting that Timp has chosen to do a couple bosses that are definitely made easier by the Master Sword before going and getting that.
Yeah, maybe there's a sword here in the compass room, or who knows? Maybe there's something helpful coming up here. Just a heart container there in Pengator.
I think even if that's the case, I think the difference between fighter and master is much smaller against some of these bosses than the difference between master and tempered.
And they didn't have Ice Palace access earlier, so something tells me there probably isn't a sword here. I feel like they might have tried for that for tempered earlier, but we'll have to see.
I think if it does have to be said that Timp has played a fairly clean game, has taken no deaths, despite doing some pretty low percent stuff. Even if some of the fights get a little hairy, everything's gone pretty close to according to plan.
And as we said, the 300 rupees are going to get cashed in for about half of that for a blue potion for SEJay.
Yeah, he does have enough to get another, but he would probably prefer to keep that through Ice Palace and have that be his only trip. Ooh, a blue mail, French vanilla in Ice Palace. That is a welcome sight.
Now, does Timp have enough magic to use the Fire Rod here on Cold Stare, or is it just enough?
No. He could do Fire Rod dupes with the bow, though they are much harder than with sword beams.
Oh, and he's realizing.
And yeah, they are. Yeah, if you're not hitting them. And so now, whereas Timp was almost an Ice Palace ahead with the pod behind, now he is behind in Ice Palace and behind a pod. That's such a small mistake, but yeah, it's just that sliver of magic costing big.
And also interesting that, with the mirror and the flute, not just going to fill that bottle up really quick. Just kind of assuming and hoping to refill that magic before the end again and give a 1-bar attempt. Now, earlier in the seed at the beginning, we were talking about how important it was for the pilot to get through all the information through the spoiler log, parse it out, make a plan. We're kind of at the end of the seed now where it's all on the runner. I mean, where the pilot has the whole list out. Here's what you're going to do all the way to the end to Ganon. Now it's time for the runner to shine, for them to focus on this low percent effort, getting through as clean as possible to win.
Yeah, and we see SEJay in a similar magic position to Timp, but having that potion and the Master Sword being at full magic, he can pretty safely get a couple sword dupes and sword beam dupes, and failing that, use that blue potion to make sure Cold Stare gets at the very least melted, and then has Master Sword for the fight. So
So Timp has gotten a small key, so he'll be able to go into that kind of half refill room here. So he will have a full bar of magic for Cold Stare. But again, with Fighter Sword and having lost a little bit of time, it's going to be a little tough one here at the end. I believe he could also use the hammer, but that gets a little too close for comfort, I think, for most folks.
yeah, it's definitely a different fight with the hammer. So yeah, I find it kind of interesting that with the Mail in Ice and a Skullwood Small on Cold Stare, that they went and grabbed one in Paradox. That could be a case of not realizing and wanting to save ice for later, when you have a couple more hearts from Skull Woods with that key. But for SEJay, that is 7 crystals, and so we're heading to GT.
And in normal modes, we'd have a really cool game, but number 4 was already the answer.
Yeah,
pickup was the big key for Ganon's Tower. As we see Timp doing really well with the hammer here, getting real close, trying to keep Cold Stares really intact there. It's doing a good job.
And yeah, it was, I think, a quicker fight for Timp than it was for SEJay, despite the sword disadvantage.
And that, I think that kind of explains why Timp just kind of went forward. We'll have to ask him in the interview, but he clearly knew what he was doing with the hammer there. So maybe just forging through to get to the end. He felt confident about that.
Yeah, I know it can kind of be a fun challenge sometimes to see how low percent you can do things. Put off that sword that I'm sure Timp will get that sword in pod, because still has not picked up another small. So that's, it's the cost of a bomb fuse, basically. So I think he'll pick it up, even if there's an easy one in GT.
And even with SEJay starting the climb with Ganon's Tower, I mean, there's no silver arrows yet. There's only a Master's Sword. Who knows what's maybe in Ganon's Tower that's accessible. There's a lot of stuff that can happen still. So even with Timp being just a pod straight away behind, anything's possible.
Yeah, it's far from over. And we do see SEJay, at the very least, grabbing a small key. Taking out the hammer, though, which makes me think he might be going a little further. Maybe a sword or silvers in DM's room. Or map chest, or... well, map chest would be a little iffy, given that it takes a key. And we see a tempered sword. And with that... most runners at this level are probably pretty confident to head to Ganon on 9 hearts blue mail, tempered sword. So we see Timp leaving the Mimic Room in pod as SEJay enters the first Mimic Room in GT. Kind of a fun parallel.
I just love the hammer dash or any kind of item dash. Just makes the game so much more fun to just plow through all those skulls there that Timp was doing.
Yeah, it's definitely fun, and it definitely saves a little time if you're already using the hammer. SEJay opting to take a little stop. Probably has been told he's got a little bit of a lead, so not feeling the need to take any risks right now.
Yeah, very common, for the pilot once they've sort of finished their brain game part of the seed to maybe take a look at the other stream, because you can do that in this mode. You can look at the stream. Arusta and McMonkey might be in our stream watching us now, so hello to you guys if you're watching. But they, sometimes it's a little boost to give your runner that knowledge of, hey, you're doing fine, keep going, or maybe we need to do a couple skips here. Let's get a little faster. It's a rare difference of information that you don't get in any other mode.
Yeah, the job of the pilot changing over the course of the run is it's one of my favorite parts of being the pilot. Early on in the run, I'm trying to find the best place to go and best things to grab. Later on, I'm trying to, make sure. I'm not trying to do a call out or anything, but things of the nature of you're short on magic in Ice Palace kind of thing, where it's that's just what's coming to mind. It's definitely trying to catch those things because the runner is focused on the low percent execution, and keeping them calm is a big part as the race goes on.
Yeah, and although this is a pretty unique style of gameplay with the spoiler aspect, Ganon's Tower Climb is still Ganon's Tower Climb. So, if you've practiced how to get through the gauntlet, it's gonna apply right here as SEJay gets to the fire room number 2.
Well, this is the first fire room, but I always think of that as Torches 2. Like, someone says Torches 2, that's what I think of. And I don't know why, but
So as SEJay heads towards Moldorm 2 and Timp banks his way up to Ganon's Tower, just take a moment. When you get a chance, definitely follow these runners and their pilots as well. We got Timp and Arusta for the Longshots, and SEJay along with McMonkey for the new Hyrule Order. So definitely give them a follow as well. Go ahead.
SEJay trying a hover on Moldorm 2, going for a little swag with the lead. I'd be surprised if he tries it more than once more, but it looks like he's just gonna go for the kill on Moldorm.
And chat pointing out that Timp only has 3 arrows, so hopefully he finds a way to pick up a few more before heading to that mimic room. He's gonna need 1 more at least. And SEJay opting not to hover a second time there.
SEJay making nice work of some of these Aga 2 patterns. I think that was a 4 cycle. I think he got a blue ball on the second phase that kept it from being a double, so he needed one extra, but other than that it was doubles. So
Timp picking up a bottle of magic and a few extra bombs, making his way towards the left side as well to get that tempered sword and hopefully some arrows. As we see SEJay getting ready to drop in to fight the big pig. And as we wait for the pig battle to start, just a reminder, all this week with the league is the spoiler log, with the pilot navigating the runner through the seed, knowing everything that's in the game right from the start of the race. So not sure if Timp just doesn't realize he doesn't have the arrow for it, or hoping that there's an arrow here. We'll have to see what happens next. Ooh, at a 10 spot of arrows right on the mimic. What a nice drop. Huge drop.
Ooh, SEJay taking a death to Ganon. Definitely bringing it closer now, but need a couple more of those if you're rooting for the long shots, I think.
Does he have anything in his bottle? I don't remember if he went back to fill it.
I don't think he ever used that blue potion, but probably just thought he wasn't going to take a hit there. Getting some nice RNG on the refight. Maybe it was a tactical death for improved RNG.
And SEJay getting towards the end of phase 3 here. Stick around after the race. We should be able to have interviews with both of the runners and the pilots as well. So we'll be interested to see some more insight about what was going on during the race. As we see the silver arrows being hinted at as the Dark World, turns out those are on the Pyramid Fairy. So we'll have to see if anybody needs to go back for the Pyramid Fairies to get those silver arrows.
Yeah, with that Desert Big Key being where it was, not an attractive pickup, since that was, I believe, our go mode, blocked by the mitts on Dark Death Mountain. See Timp finishing up with the gauntlet as SEJay continues his phase 4.
And one thing we didn't point out yet is SEJay is making use of the torch glitch, where he was able to time, just as he finishes up here, get your GGs in the chat for SEJay. He just has to cross that bridge and finish the seed. But he has the torch glitch going on. If you're able to light that torch just before it goes out on the left, you only have to worry about the left torch for the rest of the Ganon fight. GG's to SEJay.
Definitely a useful tech that makes that silverless fight that SEJay did much nicer. Both runners will be doing that, given that the silvers were not in a convenient location.
And SEJay's official race time is 56 minutes and 58 seconds. So pretty much a jet seed. None of the pendant dungeons were involved in this seed. So a sub hour for SEJay and Big Monkey. GG's to them. And I believe we'll be bringing in SEJay and McMonkey here in a second to have a little interview. Here they are. GG, guys.
GG's.
GG.
So, give us your initial thoughts on the seed. What do you think went well?
Jet seed. I need to not die on Ganon.
Yeah, it was a very fast seed. Everything was laid out. There wasn't a lot of like low percent stuff that was required, except for that Thieves Town at the beginning. That was a little dicey, but things were laid out pretty well. Swords could have been a little more accessible, but otherwise, yeah, I felt like it's a pretty logical progression to go through. And
we were gonna do Ice Palace sooner to get blue mail for the rest of the seed, but when I went to buy potions, I had 12 rupees, so I went and did other things while Monkey found that there was 300 rupees in Skull Woods. So we ended up going to the mountain and then being able to grab a Skull Woods small up there, and then get the Desert Big, come back, beat Desert Skull Woods, get money, and get that potion that I ended up using on Ganon.
Yeah. Plus a couple of heart containers too, so that made Ice Palace a lot less stressful.
And as we see, Timp finishing up Aga 2, taking the bird over to the big pig fight.
Yeah, all the pod keys were buried. Someone in chat was asking where the pod keys were. They were in bad places. There was one on the pyramid we could have gotten. There's one in Pyramid Ferry. Dark or Sewers, I think, had one, but we weren't dropping in there for that. Swamp had one, so we could have gone to Swamp first.
Yeah,
but
that's...
looking at pod, there was nothing of value in there other than Bollock's side. So
I do have to make 2 apologies. One to the restreamer, Amerith, because I forgot to start my timer again. I think I've done that in every match I've done this league. And 2, I'm sorry, Jaws. I tried really hard to pull off the hover, but I just couldn't do it today.
You know, that was going to be my first question, but since you addressed it, it's okay.
I know. I promised you that I would try it, so I at least tried it.
I appreciate that.
In Paradox and in Moldorm 2, I just couldn't get the rhythm today. I was too nervous, too jittery.
And as Timp makes his way into phase 2 for Ganon, notice that he did go south to that tree, bonk that for a fairy. That's always a good resource. If you fly back in from Aga 2 without a lot of hearts, just go down there, bonk that tree, and get a refill.
Yeah, and you know, as Timp, I'm sure probably knows, SEJay, you know, there's no point in trying to shave as many seconds off as you can. Just take the fight safe, you know, finish it off strong. Don't need to use that potion beforehand.
I should have used up the rest of my blue cane magic just and survived. I was being greedy. I saw that I had 2.5 hearts. I knew I was one fire bat would kill me. That was just me being greedy for magic for no purpose. So, you know, after that, Monkey told me, hey, just play slow and stop trying to be brave. Which I took to heart, and I did better my second attempt.
Yeah, easier said than done, but yeah, I think those moments happen. I guess that's the best part about these races is, you know, as much as we do it all for fun, there's some stakes here, and it gets the nerves going, and weird things happen, and that's fun for people to watch.
So we should explain too, really quick. Not only did Timp get the torch glitch, just like SEJay did, but this is a silverless fight. So if you haven't seen it before, it is kind of a good strategy you need to learn. We're getting a spin right when Ganon teleports away. It'll count as a hit. So you can keep lighting that torch, getting some spin hits until you complete it. So you don't necessarily have to have silver arrows to beat the game, as you've seen here.
Yeah, technically possible to do it without spins, but it's a 2-frame window where Ganon can be hit. And luckily the spin hitbox not only does double damage, but lasts a heck of a lot longer than 2 frames, so there's a lot more leniency, which is why you see everyone do it with spins.
And as it's pointed out in the chat as well, this is just game 1 as Timp finishes the Ganon fight. So GG's to him as he crosses the bridge. This is just game 1 between your 2 teams. So I know tomorrow night you guys will be facing for game 2. Who's running in that one?
I will. Monkey will be.
I get that one off. It'll be Irritable Penguin piloting and Monkey running against Arusta and Tyler Salt, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that's what's happening. So that's great. So, you know, as folks might not know, the league, it's a 7-week league. You're paired up against different teams in a division, and you play 2 games each week trying to get points for each time you win. So you will get another chance at them. We'll bring Arista and Timp here for an interview here in a second. GG, guys.
Yeah.
GG.
GG's.
GG's.
So, Arusta and Timp, tell us your initial thoughts and reactions to that seed.
Well, I like the fact you're bailed the heck out at Ganon's tower by those arrows.
Wasn't that cool?
That was the best
Neat
drop
little
in the
trick,
history of Link to the Past.
Was like, oh, well, no, we're good. Never mind. No problems. Everything's fine.
My favorite thing was my diagonal red boomerang on Wizrobe's 1 to refill my magic. I felt pretty neat about that.
Ooh.
Nice.
One of the big differences between the two teams here was that New Hyrule Order went to Pod a lot earlier and got that Master Sword. And I noticed that Longshots, you guys kind of waited on that. Is there a reason there? Is that what was happening in regards to Pod?
One of the things we talked about as our strategy was, and I told Aresta, like, I would rather you put me into situations that are kind of difficult in the interest of going fast, because, you know, I wanted to make sure I was playing in a way that was safe, but I didn't necessarily want Aresta to make me go out of my way to get a lot of safeties and things. And, you know, not to speak for Aresta, but I would imagine, he was kind of thinking about that and knowing that, like, okay, the fastest way to do this doesn't necessarily mean you need a sword just yet. But, not having that sword, I think it definitely made some boss fights very challenging.
You definitely proved that with the hammer fight on Cold Stare.
Yeah, you gained a little time on SEJay in that fight, despite the sword difference. Because
Also, did your moth go well? Because my moth was a jerk.
It took me 2 rounds. I'll say that.
Okay.
And those 2 bosses actually were probably my 2 biggest whoopsies in the seed. I got grabbed on the way to Moth doing something stupid, and then I dropped into Cold Stare without enough magic and had to go back to the beginning of Ice Palace.
Yeah, that was probably the most notable difference of the sword. Is SEJay also was short some magic going into Cold Stare, but had full health and so could use sword beams to make it up. And I think stopped for the potion beforehand.
Yes.
Now you, I don't think had money for both a potion. Well, maybe a green potion.
I think we were trying to save money at that point just because we hadn't opened Pod yet, and we had like 100, something like 180. Like, we could have gotten a green potion, but that would have been it. So.
And then at the end, I tried to buy a red potion and realized I was 4 rupees short. And I had this immediate flashback to a moment earlier in the seed when I picked up a pot to get a blue rupee that was under it and didn't pick it up, like didn't activate it, and walked away and was like, oh man, well, I'm sure that won't matter. And
I took note that you were, I think, exactly 12 rupees short of Kiki money at the point that you visited Cannonball Chest, and there were 12 rupees in those pots.
Yeah.
But
I was very happy-go-lucky in a lot of ways. And, Aresta and I were talking before we got pulled in. I mean, I finished that seed in 1 hour and 2 minutes and something. Like, I'm not sad about that. That's the fastest I've ever done a seed, let alone a Key Sanity. Of course, I had a pilot, but that was a fun seed. It was a rush.
It was very fast. It was very, very fast. We got through like 2 or 3 dungeons, and Monkey was telling me, he goes, yeah, and I think you just run up to the mountain, grab your big key, and you're in go mode. And I was like, I forget how early it was, but when he said that, but it felt like it was 20 minutes in when he told me the route, and I was like, are you serious? Like, no gross, go into Ganon to get an Agate to get, something. Yeah. Like, do we have a nice seed finally? Because we haven't had a single one for practice. But no, this one was very nice. It was a very nice, straightforward seed. Other than the swords, I would have preferred butter and silvers be right up front as well, but I'll survive with what we had.
Yeah, I was nervous about lack of armor and hearts, but it wasn't too bad. Wasn't too bad.
So quickly, this is such a unique mode that most players don't see very often. So at least from the pilot perspective, Arusta and McMonkey, how does your approach for this different than when you're normally running a race? Like, what's so unique about this in your mind?
When you're talking, go ahead, Arusta.
Okay, so basically, I would say the biggest difference, on my side as the pilot is, having the spoiler log, but also just trying to think through, okay, what do I need to find out right now to keep, my runner going? and what is something like, hey, we can put off, when I'm going through CAC, I tell them what's in CAC, and then, hey, I'm not going to the Dark World for a while. Let's not look at that until after I look at something else. That's probably the biggest that I've found.
Yeah, and more abstract. We were talking that for the pilot versus the runner, there's sort of a gradient of stress where for the pilot the stress is all front loaded because you've got this entire log to read through and plan out what are all the items we need, what's the most efficient route to get through, and then at a certain point you've got all the planning done and it's all on the runner, and their stress level goes up as they just have to execute, and it gets more frantic for them. So that's an interesting where those stresses overlap, I think, are where some of the interesting moments are. Early on, there's a lot to process there, and I'm glad we did a bunch of practice because it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, I like that.
And did either of you look at the opponent's stream, or were you watching it all? Because you're allowed to in this format.
I dipped in once I had the route fully set up, so probably about half 4 or 5 3 or 4 crystals in. Once we were in go mode and I already knew, what chest Timp had to check in the remaining dungeons, I dipped into the restream just to see for comparison. I think it was actually in Ice Palace, I think, the first time I looked. And we were both at Ice Palace at pretty much the same time.
Yeah, that's about when I tuned in as well.
Yeah. And then I tuned in again, right at the end just to see where we were. I think SEJay was somewhere in the gauntlet the next time I tuned in.
Yeah, Monkey, the only thing Monkey relayed to me is when I had beaten Ice Palace that you guys were heading to Pod when I was heading up to the mountain, so he told me don't do anything stupid.
Don't be a hero.
Only try hovering once, not four.
Yeah.
Right.
So I only tried hovering once.
Yeah.
So flipping it to the runners, same question. What's unique with your approach to this kind of mode?
Oh, you have to have faith in your pilot. I think the hardest thing to learn is trusting that your pilot is sending you to the right spot.
For me, sorry, go ahead.
What I was going to say is just, because you always want to say, do I need to grab this chest? And when you first start practicing pilots, you always have these, small mistakes where it's I could have grabbed this and made it a little bit quicker and things like that. So you do kind of have to eventually just trust that your pilot is sending you on the right path.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There are a lot of times where you go in, say Blind's basement, and you're like, are you sure I don't need to get these other 2 chests? Because I can get them really quick. It wouldn't be a big deal at all. Bombs, I could use some bombs. It's no, he knows, he's got it. He figured it out for me already. Just get what he tells you to get. And the other thing I would say about, this setup and being a runner is that my attention span shortens so much. I can only keep track of maybe 2 or 3 moves, and then it's I need him to basically just tell me again. But I also love having a handler like that and being able to really focus on execution and not dying and remembering where there's a bomb under this rock. Let me get that real quick. There was a lot of that in this scene. I felt it's great to be able to just focus on execution and the little things and little time saves while he kind of worries about the big picture. It is stressful. I definitely agree with McMonkey, especially in the middle and the end. It's stressful, but it's a lot of fun.
Great. Well, GG to both of you. Vortex, any other questions for our runners real quick?
No, I think between your questions and their answers, just about everything I would have wanted to talk about was covered. It was a great race to watch. Yeah, it was. I had a blast calming it. I had a blast watching. So
awesome. And as you see on the screen now, remember this is we're just right in the middle of the league here. A whole lot of action coming up here. Definitely on here and also on the Speed Gaming with the Invitational League. So tomorrow, this is still spoiler pilot week. We've got more of these all through Sunday. This is just week 4. You can see a few on where it says the ALTTPR League. Most importantly, shout out to the one tomorrow night that I'm piloting at 9 o'clock on this channel. But in general, definitely check out more action. Next week, we've got Mystery, where you never know what the seed's going to be. It's a mystery to the runners, mystery to us. It's going to be really exciting to watch. all kinds of shenanigans. The week after that, we've got all dungeons, key sanity. So if you like this mode where there was keys everywhere all over the world, you're going to want to tune in for that, because they have to do every dungeon in the game, including Aga Tower, Ganon, everything. It's 2 hours of races every time. It's amazing. And then the final week 7, is co-op Inamizer info share, where 2 runners on the team get to play together, play the same seed in a race and share. But the twist is every enemy in the game is random. The bosses are shuffled, so you might get blind in the treadmill area of Moth. You might get Trinex in the middle of Moldorm. Who knows what's going to happen? You could get Lionels everywhere. So you're going to want to check that out. So lots of weeks of Zelda races. Definitely give these runners a follow. Follow your commentators as well. Vortex, it was a pleasure hanging out with you tonight. And I'm Jossum Sauce. Also, shout out to Amarith, our restreamer, and our tracker, SEJay X. Really appreciate you guys, everybody helping us out here tonight. Vortex, anything else before we kick it out here?
Not at all. Other than just good luck to both of the teams on your game tomorrow. Same time, I believe?
7 o'clock, an hour earlier.
Okay, 7 o'clock tomorrow. But yeah, and good luck going forward and with the home stretch getting into playoffs. So
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And GG again to NHL.
GG, and thanks to everybody for watching. Really appreciate your support, and keep it on here for more Links of the Past League Randomizer League action. Stay safe. Take care, everybody.